Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andre Norman. I'm your host of Hope Media. And we're back with this series, bringing you the best moms that we could bring you. And today, we have another mom. I've been scouring the earth, finding the greatest moms I could find. So how did I find you?
Apparently, I made friends with someone a few years ago that was in the prison system who also appears to be friends with you.
Oh, okay. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Washington, D.C. Maryland, borderline Washington, D.C.
Upper Marlboro?
No, PG County.
PG County.
PG County.
So I thought you were one of the Brown Station Road babies.
No, that's a little bit further out for me, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. I used to hang out by, Six Flags is up there.
Yes. Six Flags apparently is the spot for all the kids growing up,
That
all
was the
summer
spot.
around.
It was like right up the street.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Maryland.
Yeah.
And so what was it like growing up in Maryland?
Part of my childhood was pretty good. I ended up in foster care at an early age and maybe early teenage. And I grew up in rougher parts of PG County.
So you're home living with whom first? Mom and dad?
My parents split at a very young age, and my mom was kind of left single-handedly trying to take care of me. So she couldn't, and I went to go live with other family members. And throughout the growth, things just got really complicated, and they got tired of, in a sense, of being bothered and kind of passed the buck.
So your mom tapped out, and then you go to aunts, uncles, grandma. You're bouncing around. Mm-hmm. And was you complicated, or was the situation complicated?
I would say I was your typical teen, and the tolerance level was not quite so much there. I would consider myself to have been the typical teen.
That sounds like a cool justification. So see, this is the thing. This is before we knew mom. Mm-hmm. You weren't mom at the time. You were just like 15 and like, I want to go outside.
No. Yeah, I grew up in a kind of a stricter environment to a certain extent, and when I hit my teenage years, it just got a little bit more strict, and to a certain point, I rebelled a little bit, but there was a lot of internal stuff going on the inside that caused me to rebel.
What caused you to rebel?
There was a family member who decided that she wanted to make it known quite often that I wasn't going to be anything quite like my mom and my dad. I wasn't going to amount to anything, and the consistency in it just kind of took me through a cycle after so long. So there was some physical abuse within there. There was a lot of mental abuse.
So people would tell you, you're not going to be anything.
Yeah, I was going to be, and for lack of a better word,
No, you can't swear.
I'm going to be crap like my mom and my dad.
And so how do you take that when a relative's like, oh, your parents ain't nothing, you're going to be nothing, and you're like, how do you handle that at 15?
I don't know if you so much handle it, you just listen to it and you just take it in. I think the handling part kind of, it comes naturally from there, just from built up emotion and, you know what I mean, maybe not even so much making yourself believe it, but just kind of taking it in and accepting it.
And then the drama got to be too much and you end up going to foster care.
Yeah, I think it got to the point where we had all had enough of each other. And I went out of a window trying to escape and went to a friend's house and hid. They called the police, picked me up, and when I came back, she basically just made a clear statement, I'm not interested anymore, you can take her with you. Yeah.
That's your aunt? Mm-hmm. So you're standing there thinking you're going back in the house, maybe get on punishment.
I actually didn't want to go back. So it was to the point where there was a camera that was hidden behind a wall, and I was egged on for a few hours, slapped around, kind of hidden. And when I was brought into the opening and I had finally lost it and I hit back.
They recorded that.
Mm-hmm. And it was used against me in fighting against child neglect charges. The sad part is that in itself traumatized me because now I cannot physically defend myself to somebody that I care about in a certain, it's not even just physically, it goes a little bit deeper than that. It goes emotionally as well. I have a cutoff point to people that I care about in order to not hurt them.
Got you. So, aunt says you can take her. I don't want her here no more.
And that's where I stayed.
So you went to foster care. How many foster families did you go through?
I started off in a temporary situation for maybe about a month and went straight to a group home.
Group home.
I went straight to a group home.
Group homes are not fun.
No.
Was it mixed boys and girls?
All women.
So, you know,
All
group home
girls.
full of girls.
All girls.
So you got a group full of girls who were, for whatever reason, placed here. And what kind of stories did you hear in the group home?
It was all different kinds of stuff, from molest to just non-existent parents to parents who died from, diseases. I mean, it's just all kinds of things.
So it's just that's got to be tough. You got a building full of girls who are just without their parents.
Yes.
And did you find any friends in there?
Took me a little while. Apparently being females and teenagers in one house together and not know each other prior to makes things a little sticky in how you move around. But, it took me a little while to kind of get to it. But once we all dispersed, I want to say half of us were very close friends. There were 7 of us in total.
And so you stayed there through high school?
I stayed there for a few years. There was some issues and some rebelling again.
You rebelling again?
Skipping school, smoking weed, stuff like that. Nothing seriously crazy.
That's a little weed not going to school.
Yeah, wasn't breaking the laws. I mean, in a sense where I wasn't getting arrested.
I'm glad you caught the distinction.
Yes, I wasn't getting arrested, but I was doing those things, and ultimately they decided they didn't want to be bothered with me anymore, so I ended up going to a lockdown facility somewhere in Maryland.
So here you are the second time, and somebody says, this is the third time. Your mother said I'm good. Then your aunt said I'm good. Now you got a group home saying I'm good. So how are you feeling about yourself at this point?
Well, the group home saying that they're good came from, I ended up with a therapist. They put me in therapy. I was going weekly for months. I ended up developing a very tight bond with the therapist. Therapist kind of became like a mom figure for me. Courts decided, or DFACS decided that they didn't want to pay for that anymore. So they decided to terminate the services. And we fought against it in court, and we lost. And that's when the rebellion started. For me, it was just like, I just didn't care. I didn't care anymore. Wherever they were going to send me next, I didn't care.
Can we give a shout out to the therapist? What's the therapist's name?
It's been so long now, I can't even tell you. I was young then. It's been a very long time. So I cannot.
Still look young.
Yeah. Thank you.
So they put you in a lockup facility. So what is this like?
This place looked like a regular house on the outside. Big, beautiful yard, and you walked inside. You were buzzed in like you were walking into the penitentiary. And there was a tinted office in the center. All the staff would be inside. They could see you, but you couldn't see them. On one side of the house was boys, and the other side of the house was girls. You were not allowed to speak to each other at any point in time, even crossing paths or even sitting in homeschooling, which was in the basement. We would take shifts on who would go into the kitchen, who would be next. There was bars on the windows.
It's like a mini prison.
Yeah. You didn't get to go anywhere. Excuse me. There would be, if there were outings and you earned your way out, you would ride on a bus, you would go someplace, come back together. But nothing was like, you didn't just get to walk outside. You didn't get to open a window. There was none of that.
So you're in jail.
Basically.
Just for your mother not being able to and your aunt not wanting to take care of you. So now you're in jail. You didn't commit any crimes.
No.
You're just stuck in the system.
No, well, if you wanted to take it back that far, there was a time I went to skip school and got caught with 3 girls that were stealing in the mall. Fortunately, I didn't catch any charges for that. I wasn't the one stealing.
So you didn't commit a crime?
But no, I was not technically charged. But, if you want to put it there.
So at what point do you get out of jail?
As far as
that little jail thing you talk, that's jail to me.
Oh, yeah, no, that was like literally hold you until your parents come pick you up, and then we're going to...
No, I mean, you're locked in this house with the buzzer.
This?
What, did you finish high school? How did you get out of there?
No, I went back through court again. I fought to get out of there. I ended up going back to the place that sent me there.
Did you behave this time? Learned your lesson?
Yeah, I cleaned it up, and I was able to convince my social worker to allow me to go into a foster home from there. And I did. I ended up in a foster home. Her name was Miss Abdullah. We
Miss
used to call her
Abdullah.
Mama Dula. And there was another girl in there with me, so I had a foster sister, and I ended up aging out from that house. I ended up going into transitional living into my own apartment from there.
Okay. So now you're 18 or you're 21?
17.
Oh, they dropped you off at 17.
I was still in high school.
So you're in your own apartment, senior high school.
At this point, I decided to call it quits, went and got my GED. I was in a rough high school, so I wasn't doing well because there's a lot of stuff going on. That high school is actually shut down now. But I had made the decision to get a full-time job. I went to night school, determined it was going to take too long, called it quits, went and got my GED, passed it, and did my thing.
Gotcha. So now you're on your own, you got your GED. At what point did you have your first kid?
I was 19 when I got pregnant.
Okay. And were you married, not married?
I was engaged.
Okay. At what age did you have your first kid?
I had my first child at 19.
Okay. And how did that go?
Initially, before the child, it was great. Everything seemed to be okay, and then once I got pregnant, everything just 360. He became abusive and kind of controlling, and he would go out, he would cheat, he would come in, and it would go straight into accuse me of cheating. I saw some guy coming from the building. I've never seen him before. Had to have come from our house, and it would just go into beatings to the point where when I was 8.5 months pregnant, I went to the hospital. I thought I was having a miscarriage after an episode with him. Come to find out, I actually had kidney stones that had to be surgically removed. So they just kind of fell into place at the same time. But it was kind of scary for him. There were other things along the way that we found out along the way just from his dealings and things that he was doing. But it just got to be a very hostile environment to the point where I think I toughed it out for about 2 years, and then I got tired of it and called it quits.
So you had a son? Mm-hmm. What'd you name him?
Christian.
Christian. Why Christian?
His dad would like to tell him it's because he's into the Bible and, you know, he's a preacher and all this other stuff, but when me and him were together, he was Muslim, so that's not why it is. But I wanted to name him after myself.
Okay.
So I named him Christian.
Got you. So he grows up in Maryland?
He did.
And then what point did you move to Georgia?
I moved to Georgia in 2012.
What made you move here, of all places?
At that point, I had had another child. He was about a year old, and his father moved here, and we were trying to make that work. So he had moved here about 8 months prior to me, and I followed behind trying to give that child an opportunity to have a life with his dad.
And did that work out?
No.
So you have 2 kids and no dads.
Right.
Single mom raising 2 boys.
Now, with that situation, Christian was not currently with me at that time. So we had an incident where I ended up with my youngest is DJ, his dad, and there was some violence within that relationship that ended up having me in the hospital. And Christian went to live with his dad temporarily. And during that time frame, he went on a binge of opportunity, I should say, where he was kind of insinuating to everyone that he was a single father who had no help. And in that run, he was able to get state assistance. He got Section 8. I mean, he got the works and became a preacher along the way. Apparently, the church was good to him through that process, although...
So now he wants to keep the kid because he's beneficial.
Correct. So he went on a run for several years where he would change phone numbers, block me from social media, things of that nature. So that same aunt who I parted ways with during foster care was grandma to my son this whole time. So when she would get him, I would get to have my time with him during those times. And it took until Christian was about 12 years old because we were trying to set up visitation through Georgia, have summers where he could, come out. If that was the case, if he still wanted to live with his dad, fine. But of course, it didn't work out that way because as soon as I moved to Georgia, he completely disappeared and decided to cut me out. And it took until Christian was 12 and there was an emergency phone call issued to my aunt at the time who took the call to hear that my son had been suspended from school for bringing a gun to school. At that point in time, I stepped in, took a flight to D.C., and filed an emergency custody hearing to get my son back with me.
And you took him and you brought him to Georgia.
I did. It didn't happen quick. It was a 3-year process, but it happened.
So he got here, he was about 15.
Yeah, I actually picked him up from Detroit Behavioral Correctional Facility, or Detroit Behavioral Rehabilitation Facility.
So you have both your boys, you're in Georgia. He goes to high school here?
Yes.
And how's that working out for him?
My youngest, he'll actually start high school next year. So he's had a really rough journey. He has ASD. So he's been, kind of all over the place in acceptance with everyone for the last few years, but it's really just starting to find himself.
So how did Christian make out when he got to Georgia?
Christian initially was amazing. So as soon as he landed, we went shopping. He had nothing when he came to me. He spent 1.5 years in the behavioral facility. His dad got rid of everything he owned. He had nothing. So I literally took him and we went on like a $4,000 shopping spree to get him everything he needed. I thought to myself, I want to make him feel like he's at home and give him everything he could have wanted while he was gone and start his restart off the right way, feeling like this, this teenage boy who looks nice, and you know what I mean? Like that was the game plan.
And then what ruined the game plan?
About a month in, literally, I think like maybe not even a week after he was released from there, we took a trip to Florida. We went on vacation. We spent a week in Florida, a huge Airbnb that we were at. Did all kinds of stuff with some of the other people that went with us. Had a great time. He came back. Things seemed to be going really well. And then he started meeting some of the people in the neighborhood.
And how did that go?
He seemingly found the drug dealers in the neighborhood.
So he was using drugs or he was selling drugs?
No, he was more so interested in selling them.
So he's out hustling, hanging out.
Not from the very beginning.
He gets to the point where he's just out there with the guys. Mm-hmm. We'll call it out there with the guys.
Yeah.
And
he was finding people that he was seemingly connecting with that were much older than him.
And so that usually doesn't turn out well.
No.
So what did that turn into? A court case of any kind?
No. Initially, these men represented themselves as people who were trying to help him. They were looking out for him, and Ma, you ain't got to worry about him. I got him. I'm going to make sure he do right and come home on time, and he knows better than to be talking to his mama like that. They gave this insinuation that they were there to look out for him. So initially in my head, I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? If as long as you keeping him out of trouble, you know what I mean? I'm okay. Now, I always made it known that he was never allowed to ride in cars with them, things of that nature. You're too young for that. You ain't got no business riding around town with these grown men. If you want to sit out here at the pool and sit at a table and hang out, have conversations, go over to the house, play video game, I'm okay with that. It became much more than what it appeared to be from the very beginning.
I know you get the call from the police station one day. Mm-hmm. And what did they say?
Ooh, prior to that, we were having issues. I knew he was trying to sell drugs. Not only was I finding them stashed in my house, I was, you know what I mean, I'm watching how he moves. I come from a rough end. I'm quite familiar. I've been with men that have done these things. I'm quite familiar.
So, aside from the particulars, it turns to the point where at one point you get a call from the police. Mm-hmm. And he's arrested.
Yeah, he left the house that day. He wasn't supposed to. Picked him up off the street, brought him back home, told him about himself. He ended up trying to mace me while he was in the car, and he took off.
Your son tried to mace you.
Mm-hmm.
So then he takes off. Then you
Yeah, he literally had it in his hand and threatened me.
Oh, he didn't mace. You
He
just
did.
talked.
He didn't actually mace me. He had it in his hand with his finger on the button. And at that point, I looked at him. He was on probation at this point for being picked up twice for theft and once for riding a four-wheeler all on a college campus.
Right.
So he was on probation. So when he took off, I was like, you know what? You got an ankle monitor on. Your PO will be calling me real soon. I'm not even going to chase you at this point, especially if you're threatening to mace me. Within hours, maybe 5 or 6 hours, I hadn't seen him since he had walked off. It was daylight then. Within hours, there was a courtesy officer. His name was Officer Clark. I'll never forget Officer Clark. And he used to live on the property. He doesn't anymore, but during the time of all of our disputes, he would intervene and he would help. He would try to talk him down, you know what I mean, and try to not arrest him if he didn't have to with everything that he was doing. Well, I got a phone call from that officer, and he said, Crystal, I need to know where your son is. And I said, well, he's not here right now. And he said, well, where is he? And I said, I don't know. And I said, is something wrong? And he said, yes. And he said, at this hour, he said, I want you to know that we're pretty confident that it's him, but your son was caught.
We don't want to do the details, but he got caught up in something.
Yes.
So they eventually find him.
Not necessarily. He turned himself in.
Eventually.
He hid out for that night, and I think he called me in the morning. He was trying to run. He was trying to bail. He was trying to catch a bus. He was trying to go. And I just told him, I said, I'm not going to give you that money. And I said, because it doesn't matter where you go. They're going to find you. All you're going to do is run from it. So I'm not going to give you the money to run, but I will give you some money to eat.
So he eventually turns himself in. He goes to court.
Yeah. Called his brother. I think his brother convinced him to turn himself in. He went to school that morning and turned himself in to the school officer.
So he has a criminal case now. And you get a lawyer or you get a public defender? How does that work?
Public defender.
Public defender.
At this point, I had to make a very sound decision in knowing that he was on camera with what he did.
I mean, cool.
Yeah.
So he goes to court. Does he go to trial or does he plead guilty?
No, he pleads.
So he pleads guilty, and what was the sentence?
20 years, served 10.
When they say in court, 20 years, served 10, what does that do to you?
We waited a while for that decision.
Not we. What does that do for you?
I waited a while for that decision. And I knew something was coming. And I even battled down the DA in regards to how hefty the sentence would be, because all I kept thinking to myself is his life is going to be over. Like, there will be no recovery from this, and how will he be able to come back into society and not have this, you know what I mean, institutionalized mindset from going in so young and being gone for so long.
How old was he when he was sentenced?
15. No, he was 17 when he was sentenced. He was 15 when he went in. He was rounding 18 when he got sentenced.
So when they say 20 served 10, what are you thinking?
I mean, before court, we knew. What scared us is days before court, we were hearing a life sentence. And I was floored. And my son was panicking. He was like, I don't understand. And his panic alone just kind of made everything worse. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do from here? Like, why a life sentence is what we were talking about. And of course, it didn't end up being a life sentence when we got there. So the 10 years almost kind of felt
like a relief.
Yeah. But I knew it was coming. I knew something to that extent was coming. I just didn't know how deep it was going to be.
So when they take him to state prison?
Not initially. He was still a juvenile. So they held him in county.
So how did you talk to him?
I was visiting him. When he was in juvenile prior to even the sentence, I was visiting him like every weekend, every single weekend until they started shipping him out for getting in trouble, and he kept going out further and further. And then the visitation slowed down to the point where we haven't seen each other in probably about a year.
So that was when he was in juvie. Has he gone to state prison yet?
Yes.
So when he gets to state prison, those are things always so far away from the city. So how do you talk to him?
On calls. That's it. For the most part, it was just calls. So he was constantly being transferred. So trying to get accounts set up for other forms of communication just were non-existent because it was a constant transfer. So he was waiting time every time he got transferred to even be able to have access to his phone. That was it.
So how important are the phone calls to you?
God, answering that question is, don't get me wrong, I love hearing from my child. My child thinks that money grows on trees, so he can call all day long, whenever he wants to, even when he's bored, just all day.
Aside from the money aspect, how is it hearing from your child on the phone, since you can't be there physically?
Some days it's heartbreaking. Some days he's up in spirits and he's good. Other days he's irritated or he's going through something on the inside and there's nothing that I can do to help you in here. There's nothing. I can offer you whatever words that I can give you, whether they'll help or not, but there's nothing beyond that point that I can do to fix or make anything better.
I know when I was inside and I'm stressed out, I'm going through stuff, to have someone to call, AKA mom, was the release. That was like, okay, it's gonna, just hearing your voice for him, or for me, hearing mom's voice was just reassurance. Even though I was talking about nothing, I was really talking about everything. Because that was my connection to the world. And as long as I have my connection to the world, then it gives me a slimmer hope that I had 105 years. So I'm on the phone with mom like, hey, how you doing? I would call home and she would take the calls, even though she couldn't afford them. But hearing from mom, for me, made a difference.
Yeah, I was gonna say for him, it probably be a little vice versa. In my head, it's almost constantly like me analyzing everything. With him, it's just oh my God, I have this person that I love, I want to talk to, and it's gonna make me feel better. But in my head, it was just almost like there's nothing I can do to make you feel better in certain instances. You might not even agree with some of the things that I'm saying to you, and it might have made you even more upset, and there's nothing I can do to console you afterwards.
Do you ever get video visits?
No, we haven't had those yet. Oh, if I'm lying, I think we had 2, but they were much earlier in. So, and then of course, anytime he was in court, we would get to see each other there.
So how are the video visits?
Video visits are like eye-to-ear grins. It's just like looking at somebody you haven't seen in a while, and you're so excited to see them. So it's heartwarming, you know. But at the same time, it's just like, God, like that's my kid. He's growing, and I haven't seen anything in between the last time to now to watch you grow while you look like this man now, and you look like a boy. The last time I got to physically see you in person.
So would you be an advocate for more video visits, or do you think?
Oh my God, yes. I think I personally think that time, it makes so much of a difference. It's almost like, and if I had to think about it, I've not been in that situation, but for that prayer, it'd be like being physically present with you. It'd be like having that moment of spending time with you in the same room, but you're with nothing else mattering, whatever else is around.
So if you could, not money notwithstanding, if you could video visit every day, would you?
Every day. Every day.
What kind of difference do you think it would make for him, and what kind of difference would it make for you?
I think for him, emotionally, I think it would be huge. The support that comes with that, because he calls me all the time. He's mama, mama, mama all the time. Or hey, ma, just out of nowhere, just because he wants somebody to, you know what I mean? He wants his mama to talk to him. But for me, I just feel like I wouldn't be missing out on my kid. I feel like my kid would still be here with me to a certain extent. I'd get to enjoy growth with you, even though you're not here. You're gone.
How would you feel if there was no phone or video visits?
I would be worried all the time. When he first went in, the gaps in between the calls, or when he would get transferred and I wouldn't hear from him, it was this constant worry. Did something happen to him? Did somebody not like him when he got there? Has he had problems with somebody? Is he okay? You know what I mean? Like, it was always that constant worry of the possibility of what could have happened to him in the time that I haven't heard from him.
So you need their phone. So, so what should we tell the phone company? Don't shut it off?
No, don't shut it off. Don't do that. But, and there's been moments where he himself wasn't in the greatest of headspaces. And that ability to be able to call his mom made a huge difference.
I actually ran a program in South Carolina. I had a kid in my program, was a gang member. Straight, serious guy. And one day we were all on the unit, and a guy bumped into him disrespectfully. They were from the same gang, that's the crazy part. But they bumped into him, and this kid went into a fit of rage. He was like, man, that's the third time you did that, and you didn't apologize. And he was like amping up. I said, before you do what you're gonna do, because he said he was gonna do some stuff, I said, come with me to the office real quick. You can do it when you get back. He's not going anyplace. We go to the office. I pick up the phone, and I call his mother. I hand him the phone. I said, hi, how you doing, Miss Ellis? Hold on one second. I said, tell your mother what you said you was gonna do about 5 minutes ago. He looked at me like, you really did this? I said, no, go tell her how you're gonna spend another 10 years in jail and not see her or your little brother. And she was like, what's the matter? He was like, nothing, Ma. And all went away. I could have got 10 therapists, 15 restraint jackets, 20 lockdown cells, and it wouldn't have calmed him down. 30 seconds on the phone with his mother changed his whole perspective. You understand the power of a mother's voice?
Oh.
We have 650,000 people watching you right now. And you're their mom for today. What would you want to say to them? They might not have heard from their mother in a long time. Maybe they can't call home anymore. Maybe mom doesn't have a phone, or she's not available, or she's just not there. So if you would be so kind as fill in.
I'm going to say the same thing that I've asked my son on numerous occasions. Was it worth it? Was everything that you didn't want to do, or the things that you wanted to do, regardless of how wrong they were they worth the walls and the confinement that you're stuck behind? Is any of that a fair trade? Is that where your worth ends? Like, is that what you're settling for? It gets so much deeper than this, and sometimes our blind sides to reality versus how we want things to be or how we see them, it misconstrues your whole thought process. But once you get there, there's no coming back. You're stuck. There is how many phone calls of mom, I don't want to be here. Can you call and see if I can get transferred? Sir, this is not a high school. I cannot transfer you because you don't like it here. This is where you are stuck, and you are going to have to make the best of it and make good decisions while you're in there, as difficult as that may be.
It's a difficult stop, 1,000%. Miss him?
All the time. All the time. I mean, I talk to him often enough to, I don't necessarily feel like he's there, but I still get that feel in a sense. But I miss the fact that I'm not gonna get to watch you graduate from high school. I'm not gonna get to watch you go on your first date with your girlfriend. I'm not going to get to give you advice on what happened in your argument with your girl. Like, I'm missing out on all of that with my child. And even just like when he turned 18, my child just became a man, and I can't even be with you for that. I can't celebrate with you. I can't have that memory for us to talk about later down along the line of you turning into a man. I don't get to be present through any of that.
So what are your hopes for him going forward?
I'm hoping that while he's in there, that he learns the difference between these men that made mistakes and want to move forward in a positive perspective versus the men who don't see any error in their way and are completely content, and whether they're in or not, life's going to be exactly the same for them. I want him to want better for himself. I want him to have a life that he can come home to where he's not going to be judged constantly because of his past, that he can still convince people that he's a good person and he's fully capable of being a great man.
You know he's watching this on the tablet right now.
Is he really?
He's gonna be.
Oh, look, I'm thinking he's live. I'm like, oh my goodness.
You want to stop blushing. No, he's watching this on a tablet. He's like, that's my mom.
Yeah.
That's my mom. You think he's proud right now?
Yeah.
So what would you want to say to him? Because he's actually watching.
Kid, I love you, but I really hope that you're using this time to find that better man in you. I'm hoping that your goal is to come out and to be somebody in the right ways. You know what I mean? However that falls. I want you to be a successful, loving man on the right path and not spending the rest of his life behind a jail cell or behind a bar.
Have you met people who've come home and done well?
Yes.
So you know it's possible?
I do know it's possible. Yes.
So you know on these tablets they have now, he can go to college, he can get his GED, he can get all kinds of certificates. Are you encouraging him to utilize
All the time. All the time. When I tell you, I am like, pick up every trade that you can get and think of everything that you can do to work for yourself. Because at the end of the day, when you come home, it's sad, but you're going to have this tagline on you. You're going to have this placement where you may possibly be judged. Set yourself up that you can work for yourself and you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You don't have to tell anyone what your past is. You came to do a job. Pick those things up. Welding, cutting hair, HVAC, electrician.
How you know all these prison programs?
No, I'm just thinking in myself.
No, these are the prison programs.
Yeah, there you go. And that to me is phenomenal because all of these things are wonderful setups. Not only are you going to come out making a decent living, but you don't have to answer to any particular person if you don't want to, with the exception of who's hiring you for a job. And you get to call it your own that way. There's nothing better than that. But, you know, like I said, there's so many different outlets just depending on what you're interested in, but set yourself up for success. Come out and don't let anybody stop your show.
I got a question. I was in an interview when I was in the other room and they were interviewing my mom. Mm-hmm. And I was at her house. I just came home and I was out doing stuff. And they said, Cheryl, your son has done some really bad stuff. Why haven't you disowned him? And I would ask you, your son, I don't know what it was, but he's done some bad stuff. Why haven't you disowned him?
It's my baby. That will always be my child. And at the end of the day, he's going to do whatever he feels is best for him. And I would always hope it's going to be the right things. It does something that doesn't hurt somebody else. But you're my child. I'm going to always be there as best as I can for you. I'm not going to say I'm going to be there through everything because some things you may not deserve depending on what you've done. But as far as always being somebody that you can call, I will always be that.
My mother told him, I've been disappointed many a times, but never will I disown my baby. Mm-mm. And in my 56 years that she was with me, she never said a nicer thing. I can think of hundreds of conversations. That is always the first thing that comes to mind. Because I was in the next room. She was like, yeah, he's been disappointing. And I was like, here it comes. Because I felt as though I wasn't always wanted. I was always worthy. And I messed up a lot of stuff and I let a lot of people down. And if she'd have said, yeah, I'll disown him, in my mind, I was ready for that answer because I thought I deserved it. Then she said, no, I've been disappointed, but I'll never disown him. And again, of 56 years I had her with me, there's nothing stands out bigger than that. Mm-hmm. So, as we said, you just said some bars.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, jail will show that to a lot of these men because you find out when you get on the other side, ain't nobody gonna be there for you like you thought. Mama will always be there. Mama is always going to answer the phone. Maybe not every single time you call, I might be busy doing something in the moment, but I'm always, you know.
You got a life?
I try to, but.
How you got a life? You got a whole son in jail, need to be making phone calls
My
and video
kids
visits.
are my life, and I tell you, they keep me busy. One does football, the other one is just all over the place, and then, you know, he's up there, and I'm just, but like I said, once you go in there, everybody that you thought you had, everybody that you thought was up here with mom or in that same boat, you'll find out real quick they're not.
So how far away, physically, distance-wise, is he from you driving?
Almost 2 hours.
So those phone calls and visits on video just make life a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard would it be without the phone and the visits? Would you just be like, oh, he's in there, he's fine?
No. I think even now, if he goes so long without calling, that's when I get to asking my kids, have you guys heard from Christian? Have any of y'all heard from Christian? And just like at that point, I'm going to start to worry because I know that he calls often. So if he's not calling, my only thought process is either he did something wrong and he's in the hole, or something happened.
Have you ever had to make a choice of putting money on for your phone and other bills at home?
All the time. All the time. I'm literally the financial backbone for my child. Everybody else, whoever he has, he might get something here and there randomly every now and then. But for the most part, I get a phone call every time I get paid. Every single time. And he may say, Ma, I need this, and I can't give you that much. This is all I have to be able to give. I can give you this much.
So you got to send money every 2 weeks? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's like phone, commissary,
yeah, I'm buying
video.
food packs. I'm buying clothes. I think the last clothing pack we bought cost me almost $300. You know, so I'm buying socks and underwear and T-shirts and sweatpants and sweatshirts and slides and you know what I mean, so he can have for the shower and jackets or whatever he's getting. I'm buying it all.
And you pay for phone calls?
I pay for phone calls. I pay for emails. I pay for phone calls.
He can email you now?
Yeah. Recently, up in the last prison that he just got transferred to, he can send emails now.
So how's that? How many times a day does he email?
Yeah, he emails for the most part, but calling, he will blow my phone up until I answer it.
He wants to hear your voice?
Yeah, it will literally nonstop, one call after the next until I answer, just depending on what he wants.
He doesn't want nothing but to hear your voice.
Mm-hmm. That's when I started adding my kids' numbers onto JPay. So that way he can call them. I actually have money on their phones too. Because some days I just, I'll be in my own space or I'm busy. And so I make sure that if he needs to get a message across, he's got one of them to go through too.
So how does JPay work?
It just, you add the account on and then of course, I believe you can, I think, if I'm correct, because they had a different system in the last place, but with JPay, you just add in the phone number. You add in the phone number and you just add the funds.
So it's easy?
Yeah, he can call anybody he wants. So usually I just upload it onto the account, and as long as the phone number's on the account, he can make the phone calls.
JPay made life easy for you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do like the fact that he can't just call anybody off of my funds. I'm okay with that.
Or you can pick your numbers that you
I think
fund.
once upon a time, now once upon a time, yes. And when he was a juvenile, he could only call me or anybody on an approved list. now that he's an adult, he can call anybody he wants to. But for a good while through the process, he was limited to who was approved, and I believe I had to approve.
Yeah, he's no longer juvenile.
Right, and I think that they actually limited him to close relatives.
Now he's a grown man. Mm-hmm. Picture that. Your boy's a grown man.
And I missed it.
No. You know something? We bounce back. So he's going to have a phenomenal opportunity when he comes home to do great things.
I've got my fingers crossed for him. I really do.
Listen, I put my mother through it, and she had 24 years watching her son run around the world do great things. And you're going to have a little bit more than 24.
That's my hopes. I want to see him get married. I want to see him give me grandbabies.
My mother was front and center at my wedding. And I think, matter of fact, I was the last of her kids to have a baby. Mm-hmm. So she got both. And yours is coming.
Got my fingers crossed. My hopes are high for him. So, they really
Boy, you better listen to your mother, man. I don't know what you thinking, man. Y'all playing games. So before we go, is there anything else you want them to know about you?
We're not, some people go in and they don't have people like me. And the recovery process isn't the same. And there's something to consider, because when you're alone and you're with people that are just as miserable as you are, but you don't have anybody, it makes it so much harder to get through. And regardless if you have somebody or not, that process is life-changing, maybe even life-traumatizing, but it's making the right decisions before it get to that point means everything.
Quick question. Did your son know about your story growing up? Because he just watched it.
Some of it. Maybe not all of it, but some of it.
Because I knew very little about my mom as a teenager. I met her as mom. Mm-hmm. She was just giving me cookies and taking me to the store and doing stuff for me. I met mom. I didn't meet 15-year-old mom who lived, with her brothers and sisters in the projects with my grandmother. Mm-hmm. I never met that. My grandmother was grandma. So we went to go see her at Christmas and birthdays, and we pick her up for the park. I didn't know grandma as mom when she was a mom. I know my mother as a child. Mm-hmm. I met her as mom. So many people meet their parents as parents. Mm-hmm. And as if they didn't have a life before. So I'm glad you had a chance. How did you feel sharing your story?
It's funny because I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me about my side of the story when it came to it. It was always just, what did he do? What happened? And I don't think I've ever had anybody really ask me, well, how do you feel about it? Are you okay?
Are you okay?
It took me a while. I'm okay now. I feel like the time that he spent in has equipped him on how to survive, in a sense. But it took me a while to get there.
So for the other moms who had a son or daughter go inside, they're thinking tough love. I'm not going to pick up the phone. I'm not going to take the video visit. What would you say to them?
You're destroying them more. So they need that. They still need to hear mom even after the consequences have come. They still need to hear positive encouragement, and they still need to hear the reprimand when they're doing something. Somebody's got to tell them that actually means something to them, even if it's just you. It makes so much more of a difference. And I think that not answering those calls only hurts them more. It only damages them more.
But if they can't afford the calls, what do you tell them? Because the calls aren't free.
No,
they're not. I'm not going to pretend they're free.
I don't know what advice to give them.
So would you give up a trip to the movies to get some phone calls from your kid?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, to be perfectly honest with you, when my funds come in, before I even start paying anything, I've already made a notation on what I have available to give out and what can work. So before I start even adding in the extracurriculars, the important stuff always comes first. But before the extracurriculars, there's him.
JPay gets the check first. Mm-hmm. Do you even know the JPay people?
No. No, just who they're sending it to. That's it. That's all I know.
So if you met somebody from JPay, what would you say to them?
Oh my goodness. Can we lower some prices? God, no, but no, I mean, I get it. Like I said, and you know, the way I see it is it's all a part of the process. So you think about it, you were asked for lesser in any sense. Would it then make as hard as an impact, or would it make as much of a difference if everything was affordable and everything was easy? It wouldn't have the same impact on either side. Would I still be telling you don't do this again anymore if the calls were conveniently free or inexpensive? Would I still be giving you that same help too if it wasn't impacting me as well?
Got you. So you feel it, which changes the dynamics of how you make him feel it. Mm-hmm. If it's too easy, it's not good.
No.
But
not when it comes to consequences.
But for a mom to say paying for calls that I can't afford is not a good thing, but like a blessing. I never heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard many a mom say many things, and I've never heard a mom say that paying for calls is a lesson for him and me.
Yeah. Yep. So he knows all the time. He says it all the time when he calls me or when he asks for anything. Mama, I know you're struggling right now, but I really just need $25 for a food pack. I'll figure it out. I'll let you know by tomorrow. Call me tomorrow. So if it wasn't tight, you know what I mean? Or if I didn't have it, let me see what I can do.
It makes him appreciate it and feel the lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's come to the realization over the last, I want to say maybe year.
That it's rich.
Not even just that, but the way he sees it is my mama always has me. I can call anybody else and ask them for things, and they'll say that they're going to send it, but they don't come through. If I ask my mama, she's always got me, even when I know she's struggling and I really don't want to ask her. She sends it.
Has he grown up?
In some ways. So there's certain things about him that I have noticed have changed, and there are some things about him that I wish he still did better on. Some of his decision making, I still wish he went in a different direction, maybe.
It was like year 6.5 when I started turning. That was just me. I've seen people turn sooner, some turn later, but it was about year 6.5 where I woke up.
Yep. A big piece of me is convinced that the path that he's currently chosen is the path that he's going to stick with. But a big piece of me still has a really big open hope that he's going to choose another one.
Better days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when they call next time, you pressing 5 or you pressing 1? You pressing 5? When they call, says, you have a call from, press 5. You get that? Mm-hmm. They give you the option of like if you never want to receive calls again. Have you ever thought about?
Yeah, I've accidentally hit that button, and I had to call and be like, I don't know what happened, but please get me off the block list. Have accidentally hit it and gone through, but no, I mean he knows it. There are some days where I'm just on overload and I can't because I don't always know when he's calling whether or not it's a good call or if it's a bad day, and there's just some days where I'm overwhelmed, and I don't know if I can handle either one right now. I'm in my personal space and want to be left alone, and have a hard time trying to explain that to my kid. You know, there's been days where Ma just needed something. Yes, but I'm not in the mood right now, and now's not a time. Like, call me later. And you know, for somebody who's not really going through life, it becomes a little harder for them to understand, or not going through the same life that you're going through right now.
Right.
It becomes a little harder for them to understand. So it can cause sometimes hostility in between us at times. And it took a while for him to be like, okay, I can't just call my mom all day long. I can't burn up $100 in a week on phone calls. You know what I mean? Like these type of things. It got to that point, but it took a while for us to get there. It was a battle, but he got there.
Okay. Last question.
Okay.
On a 1 to 10, how much you love your kid?
That's a 10. I love my kid. So I wish it didn't have to be like this, but as long as it's there, I'm going to be right beside him.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
See, I'm sure Christian's loving to see, that's my mom. He's right, he's right now like, yo, my mom's on the tablet. He's going to be like, yo, he's going to play this over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope it makes him feel good inside.
oh, I'm seeing, Mom, come on. He doesn't even have to call. You can be like, yo, let's go play the video. This video is going to be free. It's going to be free for all prisoners in every state, every county that has this tablet. They can just watch you over and over and over again.
Good. And it'll be something he can keep with him while he's in there.
Him and the rest. So you help everybody. It's not just about yours.
Yeah.
You're a good person.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it.